Yes, it is now 2021, and in early January of every year, we usually kind of take the slow time to look back at some older stuff. So today, we're taking another look at Google Stadia, something that we notoriously definitely were pretty hard on, and a lot of gamers were. But there is a Stadia community out there that has kind of kept us to task, keeping an eye on the updates, and Google kind of backing up some of its promises. Couple that with the fact that it's actually a pretty decent platform to play Cyberpunk, and we've been wanting to take a look at that. So I've been messing around with it for a couple of days, and there's some good new stuff and some same stuff. Let's just jump in. So Stadia released in 2019, and of course one of my biggest complaints about it was just the confusion of the offering, the kind of muddied waters of what the hell they were trying to even accomplish, and things are now pretty cleaned up and streamlined. So first things first, there's no like pay for early access Stadia premium type of thing. Now it's just Stadia and Stadia Pro. Stadia is free. You can go in and you can literally just purchase a game to then use on Stadia's platform. So you no longer have to pay a subscription and then also buy the games. But you can pay for Stadia Pro. This is the annual subscription of like $10 a month, and this gets you 4K streaming with 5.1 surround, and it also just gives you access to free games every month. They like a PlayStation Plus or an Xbox Games with Gold. It doles out some free games that you can then access and play and stream. They also offer a trial so you can try out Stadia Pro for yourself, and really now, like I said, the whole thing is way more straightforward and much better, and that even comes down to once you start browsing through the library. There's still no formal search function, which is kind of weird for something like this made by Google. But hey, besides that, the interface is pretty much the same as you'd expect from last time around, but when you scroll through, you see much better availability of games. They have a lot of games, and the offering is very improved, and I gotta say, I like it. I'm pretty happy with it, especially if you're thinking of just like the current state of games and like the recent releases and what's going on. You can hop in on this thing and play Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Immortals Phoenix Rising or the newest NBA 2K game, or of course, Cyberpunk, which we're gonna talk about a lot. We played a lot of Cyberpunk on this thing. Granted, this still comes down to my main issue that I've had with it. One of my main issues is the fact that you have to buy a game and then it's only on Google's platform. So you're kind of locked to that Stadia ecosystem where obviously you buy on any ecosystem, you're kind of locked to it. But what I like about the other ones is the different ways to play it. Like you have the option of having a console or streaming, stuff like that with like Xbox or GeForce Now or whatever. But regardless, some people do buy into this, and that's what I want to point out here and highlight, that there are people that found Stadia and like Stadia and use Stadia. There is a subreddit based around Stadia. There is a community there. There are people who are enthusiastic about it. There are people who try different things with Stadia. There are people that are talking to the developers and asking for more features. The way people play games, everybody's use case is different. I still am not totally convinced on streaming because I'm really picky. I'm really particular. I like hardcore, real, actual a game coming from a machine directly. I also worry, like, I don't have the greatest internet, and I know a lot of other people don't, so I'm skeptical of that. But say you do, or say you travel a lot, or you just don't have the cash to plunk down for a console or PC hardware, maybe this is going to work for you. Also, the way it works now, too, where you don't have to technically buy into a subscription, you can just do something like, that's one specific game that I want to play on the go streaming, like maybe something like Destiny, or now with Cyberpunk. Of course, in the news, everyone was talking about how Cyberpunk actually kind of ran the best on Stadia because there were the least amount of issues on it because it was just streaming and you only had to deal with that, the internet connection. And that is the case. Cyberpunk does look very good here. It is like the better version of Cyberpunk, a game that I still think, despite all of the issues and all of the very big problems with CD Projekt Red, still a decent game down there, and you can experience like this, and it's kind of cool. Especially because the performance is good. There's still inconsistencies here and there, like I talked about last time, but I still stand by the fact that like when this thing works, it really works, and the technology is incredibly impressive. You can tell why Google, and they definitely did put a lot of money behind it. And there's a lot of other streaming services and cloud services right now, but it seems like Google's tech and responsiveness and latency is really damn good. You can be competent with some more intense games. I still don't think it's like something that you're gonna do like a fighting game championship on, but they are very playable. That is, of course, how you're playing. It all comes down to internet connection, of course. That is very important. You have to check your speeds. You have to see what you can stream. There are thresholds for 720p, 1080p, which we were playing at mostly, and 4K. And the demands aren't super intensive, but again, everybody has different internet networks. Everybody has different situations, maybe bandwidth caps, so that's important. But if you are playing this thing wired, if you are streaming it to, say, a laptop that you have a hardwired connection to, or even say you can actually hardwire some of the Chromecast stuff, then your experience is probably going to be really good and pretty seamless. It has been so far for us, but when you're playing on Wi-Fi, even with good Wi-Fi, like, you know, the best new router and good fiber optic connection, you still see some drops here and there, and that's unfortunate. But performance is very good, again, for what it is, if you are okay with streaming. I love these things, like all of these different streaming services on phones. I think that's impressive. I said last time Stadia was the most impressive on a phone. It seemed to run the best on phones, and now they're all kind of up to par, but still, on a phone is fun to experience things. There are way more devices supported, all types of Android devices, where at launch it was only Pixel. Now way more people can get access to it. Not only that, they did add like an on-screen touchpad, touch controls for games if you want that. It makes games, it's like incredibly difficult for a lot of games, but the fact that they supported that and added that just in a pinch is pretty cool. Now, the big elephant in the room is that technically there's still no iOS app. There's no iPhone official real support because of how Apple is. Of course, I would say the blame is more on Apple, but there is a web app, so you can access it through a web app through the browser on your iPhone if you want to work around, but still, it seems like a laptop, a computer, a Chromecast, or an Android phone are the best ways to experience this thing. And Stadia is doing a pretty decent job of rolling out some of the features that they have promised since it was announced. There are things popping up, but a lot of them are only supported for certain games, like some of the multiplayer stuff, like the shareability stuff. That's got to be supported by the developers of the games. They have to implement a lot of those features. So it's going to be kind of like all over the place. You might not see it everywhere. The same thing goes for 4K support. Some games, some developers may put their games on Stadia, but not go the extra mile and give it 4K support. So if you do have a crazy badass internet connection and you are paying for Stadia Pro, it's not always a definite guarantee that you're going to get this amazing 4K experience. Most of the time, yes. I'm showing probably some previous footage of our old video in some spots in this video, like we got Red Dead 4K that looked really good. So that is a thing, but still there are the caveats. I think all of the streaming services do have the caveats here and there, but Stadia now seems to be less glaring. It's nice to just set up a Bluetooth connection or a wired connection to your device with whatever controller you have lying around, and then very quickly fire up a game. Things seem to start up faster, specifically on the desktop side, just in a browser. The experience is very cool, very convenient. And if you can't tell, I'm just trying to say here that I think Stadia is a much stronger, much more competent experience now. Personally, I am someone who is still not into this style of playing games, but I appreciate people that do, and I think Google is at least backing this thing up. They're still supporting it. They're putting money into it. There are new games. There are free games you get if you have Stadia Pro. The actual offering of games, the library is much, much bigger now. When the game first launched, it was like, cool, let's play Red Dead or Shadow of the Tomb Raider again. Woohoo. Now, there's so much more of an offering. So if you are down with buying a $60 game on a platform where you can only play it through this streaming service, then this could be for you. There are still a lot of other options and a lot of other alternative ways to play games out there. Maybe I'm just a little old school, but I'm happy that it's at least kind of coming around, and that the community of Stadia people, even though some of them kind of like low-key harassed me, like I'm happy that at least they are satisfied with the service and they are seeing it getting better. I think that Stadia does still have some sort of a future. I think I said that in the old video, because the technology is still very impressive and some people have been attaching to it, and Google has given some of the features they promised. There's more of a good content offering for the games. I think it's still only very specifically for a certain type of player. That's very important to point out. This isn't like the end-all be-all for every type of player, maybe even hardcore gamers, but certain people with certain situations, certain restrictions, or certain needs, whatever they may be, might be satisfied with Stadia. Me personally, I'm still not, but I respect the people that do. That's the bottom line, and that's how we should when we talk about video games. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments. If you've stuck with Stadia for more than a year now, if you've had a subscription, what are you thinking? Maybe you play all your games on there, maybe you play one game on there. Whoever you are, I want to hear your experience. Maybe if you decided to try it again like we did, want to know what you're thinking. Whoever you are, just about the future of streaming video games, definitely let us know in the comments. And of course, as always, thank you guys for watching. You know, clicking the like button does help us. We would really appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing because we put out videos every single day. We'll see you guys this year in 2021. Thank you for watching. See you guys next time.